Welcome back to KittyDiva. Today's story is about a serial killer who appeared in Russia in 1992, right after the collapse of the Soviet Union, and continued committing his crimes until 2012. He targeted and slaughtered women. And his main objective? Women. He drove the security forces and investigators completely insane. Dozens of lawyers and judges worked on his case. Judges retired and were replaced by others. Detectives retired, and new ones took over. Police officers changed, yet he continuously kept committing crimes. He frustrated them in a city called Angarsk in Russia. Every single day they would find the body of a girl. At first they said, "This is a criminal, let's look for him." The next day a second body was found, then a third, a fourth, and sometimes they found two bodies in a single day. They were killed in the exact same manner. Murdered, dismembered, and dumped in the forest. After the security forces failed to identify the criminal, they gathered all the crimes, the killing methods, the timings, and the locations. That's when it became clear that they all belonged to the same killer. This meant he was a highly intelligent serial killer who knew exactly how to escape the eyes of the police, how to hide evidence, and left absolutely no fingerprints at the crime scenes. No. This was no ordinary human being. That is why they named him the werewolf. It got to a point where TV series eventually came out depicting a man who transforms into a brutal, hairy werewolf and kills. They meant that this killer was a werewolf who only hunted his victims during the night, killing them and finishing them off. Before morning came, he would be completely done with the victim, leaving her behind and walking away. They started gathering evidence and trying to match the exact scenario this criminal followed, attempting to stay one step ahead to catch him. By any means necessary, they discovered that he only killed women, except for one male police officer among a large group of women. They thought, maybe this officer came along by mistake, or he was about to expose him, so he killed him along the way. The second and most chilling thing they discovered was that he chose short, plump women. Whenever he saw a woman who was heavy-set and short, he loved that type. All the victims shared almost the exact same physical traits. They began counting the number of victims they kept finding, year after year. Time went by, and they couldn't catch him. They realized around 78 victims had been killed by the same person. In the beginning, back in '92, forensic advancement had not reached a stage where it could use sophisticated methods to uncover criminals. However, in 2007, while he was still committing crimes, they decided to match the crimes with the locations because they came up with a new idea: tracking tire treads. And indeed, from 2007 onward, every time he committed a crime, they found the exact same tire print. They knew that even if there were multiple vehicles with the same type of tire, that specific tire must have a distinctive mark, a scratch, the amount of oil on it, or certain ridges. This tire on the criminal's vehicle absolutely had to have a unique fingerprint. They successfully identified it and concluded that this person was committing the crimes using the exact same vehicle. Now, they had a path for the search. They decided to inspect all vehicles carrying that specific type of tire, which belonged to a Russian car model called Niva. Russian cars have their own specific models that don't enter European or Arab countries. Therefore, they were able to narrow down the car type to a Lada Niva. They started bringing in every Niva car present in that city and subjected them to tire tread testing. But they couldn't find a single car matching the track they had. They spent the next year and the year after searching and testing while the crimes continued. The police officers deployed and tried to monitor the situation, but they just couldn't catch him. One day, a man passing through one of the forests near the city saw a girl crawling out from the woods toward the public road. He stopped, completely shocked by the sight of the girl. She was dismembered and bleeding heavily, and the weather was extremely freezing cold. He took her and rushed her to the hospital. When they admitted her to the operating and resuscitation room, the doctors wondered, how did she survive? How did she stay naked all night in this impossibly freezing cold in that forest? Furthermore, she had very deep-cut wounds, yet she survived. God wanted her to survive to expose the secret. They did what was necessary for her, and her condition stabilized. They waited for her until she regained consciousness, and the police interrogated her. The girl's name was Svetlana. She was 15 years old. But anyone who saw her would say it's impossible. She looked 25 or 30 years old, short and plump. As soon as the police saw her, they said, "She matches the profile of the same criminal." They interrogated her. "What is your story? What brought you here, and who assaulted you?" She replied, "I was at a casino. I actually live in another city, but I came on a trip to this city, my hometown, to feed the animals at my mother's house while she is traveling. After feeding them, I stopped by the casino and kept drinking until I got drunk. When I walked out, a police officer stopped for me. A uniform officer in a police patrol car. He offered to give me a ride, and he actually took me and drove me to the forest. At first, I found it strange. He made me get out, started beating me, forced me to strip off my clothes, then pulled out a knife and began stabbing me. Until I lost consciousness and felt nothing, I remained lying naked on the ground, bleeding all night until the sun began to rise. That's when I felt life returning to me, and I started fighting, standing up and falling down, until I began crawling and reached the street." They asked her, "An officer?" She said, "Yes." "What was the car?" She said, "A patrol car." "Do you know what he looks like?" She said, "I wasn't focused. I was actually drunk, but I was conscious enough to be certain he was an officer, and he put me in a patrol car." Here, when she told them it was a patrol car, and that it matched the exact method of the werewolf, they looked at each other and said, "Hold on, how did we completely miss inspecting the police patrol cars? Most of our patrol cars are the exact same type of car we are looking for, the Niva. Why didn't we inspect them?" But they had completely ruled out the possibility of a police officer using a patrol car. They said, "By God, let's inspect the patrol cars." They tested the first patrol car, the second, the third, and indeed, the specifications perfectly matched one of the patrol cars driven by a man named Mikhail Popkov. This Mikhail was 53 years old. Officer Mikhail Popkov was then arrested. Of course, Mikhail's wife was also a police officer, and his daughter was a school teacher. His wife broke down and started defending him fiercely. "Shame on you! How can you accuse my husband? He is an honorable, loyal, and loving man." They detained him initially, but they doubted he was the one. Even the girl said, "I wasn't focused, and I think he was hiding his face." The problem was that there was no fingerprint or physical evidence of him at the crime scene, and he denied everything. However, the tire tread matched the tire of the patrol car he drove. They thought, maybe someone else used it. Maybe we wronged the man. They released him on bail. He was suspended from duty, and he started working as a personal bodyguard. Anyone who wanted a bodyguard went to him, but he was placed under close surveillance. They kept monitoring him, and they noticed that after interrogating Mikhail, no more crimes were committed. They said, "No, it must really be Mikhail, but how can we prove it?" The man kept denying it. His wife kept defending him, and since he was a former police officer, he had the absolute audacity to demand his retirement pension. It seemed impossible for the criminal to be that brazen. This was around 2010 and 2011. After a year, the criminal returned and committed the same crimes. They examined one of the bodies taken from the crime scene and discovered that this girl had been infected with a disease called syphilis, which is a sexually transmitted disease. The criminal was the one who transmitted it to her, even though they found no semen or other traces, only the disease. They said, "Let's test Mikhail Popkov." They arrested him and said, "We want to test you." He asked them, "Why? What did I do?" He was actually very cautious during this period and thought, "I will stay strong against them and prove to them that I didn't do anything." But they tested him, and he actually turned out to be infected with syphilis. On top of that, he was suffering from issues regarding his sexual capability. They told him, "Did you know you are sick with syphilis, and the victim you assaulted, You transmitted the exact same disease to her." At that point, he collapsed. He was subjected to precise testing, and they started treating him. They now had very clear evidence that he was the one who committed that crime. They kept pressuring him until he confessed to 22 crimes, and he went and guided the police to the locations of the bodies. The police were shocked because these 22 victims were not even in the statistics they had, which numbered around 55 women and an officer. He confessed to 22, meaning the total number they eventually managed to prove against him was 78 victims. They sentenced him to life imprisonment, and he was supposed to complete his sentence and come out by 2021, but while he was in prison, he began to open up and chat with fellow criminals he met behind bars. He started telling them, "I killed so-and-so, and I did this and that." The authorities had placed an informant there, and his words turned out to be completely true because he was giving them information that even the police hadn't uncovered at that time. They brought him to trial all over again and sentenced him to a permanent life imprisonment with absolutely no pardon. He is never to be released for the rest of his life. When they confronted him and said, "All right, you confessed and told your friends, tell us why. Why were you committing these crimes?" He said, "Let me tell you now. Who is the legend among the serial killers known to you?" "Who?" they said. "The legend who is number one is Andrei Chikatilo, who existed during the days of the Soviet Union. He used to kidnap young boys and girls, kill them, and eat parts of their bodies, and he managed to kill 52 people. Number two was the chessboard killer, whose name was Alexander, who planned to kill 64 people but stopped at 48. Popkov replied with pure arrogance, "In order for me to achieve first place, I killed 78 people, all women. My goal was to cleanse the city of these immoral women whom I always used to hunt near casinos when they were intoxicated, to cleanse the world of their filth, sitting there drinking and leaving her children, or leaving her family, or leaving her husband and betraying him. So my role was to cleanse society of this disease, especially those who were short and plump. They were the absolute worst thing to my sight. If I saw one, I would take her to the forest and chop her to pieces. I used to enjoy dissecting their bodies with a knife." He continued, "I used several methods, either with a rope like a gallows rope, putting it around her neck from the very beginning, placing the rope over my shoulder, and dragging her while she suffocated until I reached the middle of the forest, and then I'd stab her a few times. Among them, I actually assaulted 10 women, but as for the rest, no, I would just kill her, dump her in the forest, and walk away. I used to find pleasure in it, and whoever named me the werewolf was absolutely right, because I felt as though I was a wolf of the forest, like I was the king of the forest at night, and no one could ever reach me. I used the police patrol car to lure most of the victims, and this is the end of our story. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, please subscribe to KittyDiva, hit the like button, and share it with your friends.